In the heart of Europe, hidden by dense fog and ancient forests, Blackthorn Castle stands tall, a place where history and dark secrets intertwine. For centuries, the castle's stone walls have echoed with the whispers of forgotten souls, cursed loves, and brutal wars. Now a restless spirit emerges, seeking to uncover a truth buried beneath layers of time and blood. Welcome to a tale of mystery, betrayal, and haunting darkness, where the past refuses to die and the castle's curse extends beyond the grave. The story is called Whispers of Blackthorn Castle. The cold wind whipped fiercely as Evelyn's carriage crept up the winding road leading to Blackwood Castle. Dark clouds gathered overhead, casting ominous shadows on the ancient stones of the fortress. The castle stood tall and brooding atop the hill, its towering turrets piercing the gloomy sky like silent sentinels watching over a forgotten land. Evelyn pulled her cloak tighter around her slender frame, her heart pounding with a mix of excitement and dread. She had come to Blackwood as a historian, drawn by the whispers of a dark curse and strange disappearances in the nearby village. The locals spoke in hushed tones about the castle's haunted past, tales passed down for generations but never confirmed. As the carriage rolled through the iron gates, a sudden chill crept down Evelyn's spine. The air was thick with a heavy silence, broken only by the distant howl of a lone wolf. She wondered what secrets awaited inside these ancient walls, and if she would live to uncover them. The castle's massive wooden doors creaked open, revealing a dimly lit hall lined with faded tapestries and portraits whose eyes seemed to follow her every move. Evelyn stepped inside, determined to unravel the mysteries buried deep within Blackwood's shadows. The evening settled quickly over Blackwood Castle, and Evelyn found herself alone in the vast hall. The flickering candlelight cast long, trembling shadows across the worn stone walls. Outside, the wind began to moan through the broken battlements, carrying voices that seemed not quite human. She unrolled the fragile diary she had found tucked beneath a loose floorboard in the entrance hall. Its pages were yellowed and brittle, ink faded but still legible. The diary belonged to Lady Isolde, the last mistress of Blackwood, whose fate was entwined with the castle's dark legacy. Evelyn read slowly, the words revealing a tale of love and betrayal, of secret meetings in moonlit gardens and whispered curses uttered under breath. Isolde's hand had trembled as she wrote of an ancient evil awakening in the woods beyond the castle walls, a force that had cursed her family for generations. As the wind grew louder, the whispers seemed to rise from the very stones themselves, circling Evelyn like ghostly fingers brushing her skin. A sudden coldness gripped her heart, and she realized that the stories were not just legends. Something truly restless lurked here, waiting to be discovered. Suddenly, a faint knock echoed through the hall. Evelyn's breath caught in her throat. She rose slowly, clutching the diary to her chest, and moved towards the heavy oak door. No one was there. Only the whispering wind remained. The knock had left Evelyn shaken. She stayed up most of the night, reading and rereading Lady Isolde's diary, her thoughts drifting like shadows across the candlelit room. As dawn began to creep over the gray hills outside, she finally rose, wrapped her cloak tighter, and lit a fresh lantern. The castle was silent. A thick mist had crept in through the cracks in the ancient windows, giving the halls a dreamlike quality. Evelyn's boots echoed softly on the cold stone as she ventured deeper into the heart of Blackwood. Following the description from the diary, she found a narrow stairwell hidden behind a faded tapestry in the west wing. The steps were covered in dust and spiderwebs, untouched for decades. At the top of the stairs, a small wooden door stood ajar. Pushing it open, Evelyn stepped into a long, dimly lit room, the portrait room. Dozens of aged paintings lined the walls, each depicting a member of the Blackwood lineage. Their eyes, painted in exquisite detail, seemed alive, watching. Evelyn moved slowly, her lantern casting light and shadow across the faces of nobles, long dead. There was Lord Edwin Blackwood, the patriarch, who had defended the castle during the Revolution. Next to him, Lady Genevieve, whose diary spoke of seances and secret rituals. There were children, lovers, even a few unfamiliar faces. Their names faded beneath cracked gold plaques. At the far end of the room was a painting draped in black velvet. Evelyn's breath caught. This wasn't mentioned in the diary. She reached out and slowly pulled the velvet down. Behind it was a portrait of Lady Isolde, but not the elegant, smiling woman described in the earlier pages. This Isolde looked pale, hollow-eyed, her lips turned down in sorrow. The background of the portrait was the forest, dark, twisted trees, and what looked like a figure cloaked in shadows just beyond her shoulder. Suddenly, the lantern flickered. The air grew heavier, colder. The sound of fabric rustling reached Evelyn's ears. Though she stood completely still, she turned. The door had shut behind her. Her heartbeat quickened. The temperature plummeted, and her breath became visible in the air. Then she saw it, a shape moving behind one of the portraits. Just for a second. A whisper, barely audible. "You shouldn't have come." Evelyn backed toward the door. It wouldn't open. She pulled harder. Nothing. Then, without warning, the lantern went out. The room plunged into blackness, but she wasn't alone. She felt a presence, cold and near. Something, or someone, exhaled against her neck. With trembling fingers, she lit a match. The light flared, revealing the face from the painting, Lady Isolde, now standing just inches from her. But the eyes were wrong. They weren't paint. They were real, and they were weeping. The match hissed out. Darkness swallowed Evelyn once again. She couldn't scream. Her voice caught in her throat, frozen with the cold that wrapped around her like invisible chains. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears as she stumbled backward. The space where Lady Isolde's figure had stood was now empty. The room was silent, but not still. There were whispers, soft at first, like wind moving through cracked stone, then clearer, more deliberate, as though the walls themselves were murmuring secrets long buried. "It's not over. She waits beneath. The forest remembers." The floor creaked beneath Evelyn's feet. Her trembling hands searched for the lantern, fumbling in the dark. She found it and struck another match. The flame wavered, casting flickering shadows. The portrait stared at her with a quiet accusation. Suddenly, a gust of wind swept through the room, though no window was open. The flame went out again. Evelyn spun around and ran for the door. This time, it opened easily. She burst into the corridor, slamming the door behind her, her breath shallow and ragged. She leaned against the wall, her head spinning. Was it real? Or was the castle already starting to eat at her mind? She needed answers. She needed proof. Back in her chamber, she pulled out the diary once more. Lady Isolde's words seemed more urgent now, every sentence laced with warning. There are voices in the walls. At night, they crawl through the stones and sing the names of the dead. I see him again in the mirror, the one who does not age, whose eyes are silver and blind to time. Evelyn ran her fingers across the ink, trying to decipher meaning. Who was he? And what was beneath? She remembered the line from the portrait room. She waits beneath. Was there something under the castle? A crypt, a forgotten tomb? Later that day, Evelyn explored the eastern corridor, where the foundation dipped lower into the hillside. The light grew dimmer as she descended. Old iron sconces lined the walls, long, unused. The air was thick with the scent of earth, mold, and something fainter, something metallic. She found a door hidden behind a warped bookshelf. It took all her strength to force it open. Beyond was a spiral staircase descending into complete blackness. She lit the lantern once more, and with a deep breath, stepped down. Each step groaned beneath her weight. As she descended, the air grew colder still. The only sound was the crackle of the flame and the occasional drip of unseen water. At the bottom, she reached a narrow corridor carved directly into the bedrock. Strange symbols were etched into the walls, older than anything else in the castle. She ran her fingers across them. They burned cold. Then she heard it again. The whisper, "You should not be here." She turned. No one. She walked further, deeper into the stone veins of Blackwood. The passage opened into a crypt, a vast chamber filled with ancient coffins and crumbling statues. Candles, long melted to stubs, littered the floor in odd patterns. The smell of decay was stronger here. At the far end of the crypt was an iron gate, locked with rusted chains. Behind it, a black marble tomb with no name, just a sigil, a wolf devouring the sun. Evelyn's heart raced. She had seen that symbol before, in the diary, in the margins, next to every mention of him. She stepped closer, her breath forming clouds in the frigid air, and then a low growl. From behind the tomb, something stirred. The growl came again. Low, deep, animal, yet not. Evelyn's body froze. She held the lantern high, its flame fluttering, barely piercing the suffocating darkness. The tomb loomed ahead, the same black marble slab bearing only the sigil of the wolf devouring the sun. The sound shifted, not closer but beneath. A rumble as if something stirred under the floor. Her instinct screamed for her to run, but something kept her rooted. The same force that had drawn her to the diary, the whispers in the walls, the mirror's shadow. She stepped closer to the tomb, each footstep echoing like a drumbeat in her chest. Then she noticed it, a small crack in the stone floor just before the iron gate. It hadn't been there before. Kneeling, she brushed away the dust, revealing a jagged line. From within, a foul, warm draft exhaled, like breath from something ancient and buried. She stood up, heart racing, and tested the iron gate. It groaned but didn't budge. Then another sound, not a growl, a voice. "You have the diary?" Evelyn turned sharply. Her lantern's light caught a flash of movement in the far shadows of the crypt. She held her breath, straining to hear more. The voice was faint, male, and broken, like it came from far away, or from a shattered soul. "He watches in the mirror, always." "Who?" she whispered. "Who is he?" Silence. Then came a different noise. Stone shifting, somewhere deep below, and water, trickling, rising. The crack before her began to widen ever so slightly, a thin line of mist escaping from its depth. Evelyn stumbled backward. Suddenly a loud metallic clang echoed through the chamber. She spun. The iron gate was open. It had unlatched without her touch. Beyond it, the air was black and thick. The tomb's lid had shifted, only slightly, but enough. From the edge, a shadow rose. It was human-shaped but wrong, elongated, too tall, its head bending slightly to the side, as if studying her. No eyes, no face, just black void, Evelyn screamed, but no sound came out. She turned and fled from the crypt, heart pounding against her ribs like a drum of war. Up the spiral stairs, past the whispering walls, through the bookshelf door, and into the cold, gray light of dusk. She collapsed outside, gasping. The air smelled of trees and autumn again, normal, real, but her hands were shaking uncontrollably. She didn't go back inside that night. Instead, she sat near the edge of the forest, beneath an old oak, the diary in her lap. Her lantern flickered beside her, nearly out. She flipped to the final pages. He lives beneath us in silence and shadow. They tried to bury him, seal him, erase him, but the ground remembers, the blood remembers. The mirror cannot lie forever. Another line was scrawled at the bottom, not in Lady Isolde's hand. It was rougher, newer. "If you found this, leave. Burn the book. Do not wake the King of Shadows." But Evelyn could not. Somewhere in the silence, she knew this was not just a haunting. It was history unraveling, and she was meant to see it through. Evelyn didn't sleep that night. Wrapped in her coat beneath the ancient oak tree, she sat watching the castle through the bare branches as the moon carved silver scars across the sky. Every now and then, she heard faint echoes from within the stone walls, creaks, thuds, something scratching. But it wasn't just fear that kept her awake. It was curiosity and something deeper, like the diary had awakened something in her. By dawn, she returned to the castle. Not inside, not yet. Instead, she circled the outer grounds, guided by intuition and old memory. The woods whispered as she walked, like the trees remembered the centuries that passed. Behind the east wing, near the broken greenhouse, she found it. A collapsed statue half buried in ivy and dirt. The face was eroded, but the sigil on the chest was unmistakable. The same wolf devouring the sun. At the statue's base, carved in Latin, Umbra regem tenet, the shadow holds the king. She touched the stone. It was warm, as if it retained the heat of something once living. The diary's words returned to her. They tried to bury him, but the ground remembers. Back inside the library, she pored over the oldest book she could find, searching for records of the castle's original rulers. Blackwood had once belonged to House Valemont, a noble line erased from most official records after 1789. The same year the French Revolution reached its peak, but one name kept surfacing, in annotations, in marginal notes, and scratched-out entries: King Aldrich the Hollow. A king, not by title but by worship. A ruler whose followers called him the Undying Flame, the Father of Dawn, the Mouth of the Mirror. A man who claimed to speak to the dead and to command them. The last note, written by a monk in trembling script. He is buried beneath the fifth pillar, but the seal does not hold. It never did. Suddenly everything clicked. The tomb, the whispers, the crack in the floor, the mirror. Evelyn's skin crawled. She turned to leave, but something caught her eye. A book she hadn't opened before. Its spine bore no title, but the leather was old and cold to the touch. She opened it. Inside, a single page. To awaken the shadow, blood must be given in silence. To seal it again, one must enter the mirror and never return. Her breath hitched. A gust of wind slammed the library door shut behind her. The castle was breathing again. The attic door groaned as Evelyn pushed it open. A draft of stale air and the scent of moth-eaten fabric greeted her like a breath from a corpse. Dust hung thick in the air. Cobwebs lined the beams like forgotten lace. She climbed slowly, each step on the wooden stairs creaking under her weight. The gable window let in a shaft of pale light. In the center of the attic stood a large object, covered with a moth-eaten sheet. It pulsed, not literally, but Evelyn felt it. A presence. She approached, fingers trembling. With one tug, she pulled the sheet away. A mirror, 7 feet tall, framed in black iron, twisted like roots, strangling a corpse. The glass was strangely dull, not reflective, more like the surface of water just before a storm. Carved into the top of the frame, in flaking gold, in speculo regnum dormit. In the mirror, the kingdom sleeps. She stepped closer. For a second, just a blink, the reflection moved without her. She gasped and stepped back. Her own face stared back at her, now pale and hollow-eyed. Then a whisper, not from behind her, not in the room. From the mirror, "Come closer. He remembers you." She froze. The diary, the warnings, the statue, the book in the library. And now, this. Everything had led here. She placed her hand on the mirror. The glass was cold and then warm, and then her hand passed through. She yanked it back, breath ragged. Her palm was soaked with condensation, but also with something else. Dark red, almost black. Blood? A crash behind her. The attic door slammed shut. Locked. Evelyn spun around, trapped in the attic with a mirror that breathed. And inside that mirror, just beneath the surface, a figure stirred. Not a reflection. A man. tall, wrapped in shadow, wearing a crown of twisted iron. His eyes opened, and they were hollow. The figure in the mirror stepped forward, but he didn't cross the glass, not yet. Instead, his form remained suspended just beneath the surface, like a shadow wading through dark water. Evelyn could hardly breathe, her back pressed against the attic wall, and her trembling hands reached instinctively for something, anything, to defend herself. But there was nothing. The man behind the glass tilted his head as if studying her. His mouth didn't move, but a voice filled the room. "You carry the blood of the Oathbreakers. You are the key." Evelyn's voice was barely a whisper. Who are you?" "I am Aldrich, once a king, now a curse." She recognized the name. King Aldrich the Hollow, the mad ruler who vanished centuries ago, his court lost to darkness. Evelyn's mind raced. "What do you want from me?" "To be free, and for the kingdom to wake." Suddenly, the attic grew cold. Frost crept along the floorboards. The candle in the corner guttered, then died. The mirror shimmered, and then a hand reached out from it, real, pale, with cracked nails and bone-white skin, steaming with chill. Evelyn staggered back, but the hand didn't pursue. It hovered mid-air, open, waiting, a pact. "Take my hand," Aldrich said, "and I will show you the truth." Her instincts screamed to run, but something deeper, older, inside her pulsed with curiosity. She stepped forward. Her fingers touched his, and the attic disappeared. She was standing in a vast throne room. Firelight danced across high stone columns. Tapestries of gold and red hung tattered on the walls. It smelled of blood and dust. And in the center, the throne. King Aldrich sat upon it, but not as a spirit. He was whole, flesh and blood. He looked younger, but his eyes, those same hollow eyes, still burned. Beside him knelt nobles in chains. Some wept, some laughed. All were bound by iron vines that seemed to grow from the stones themselves. A voice rang in Evelyn's head, not Aldrich's, but another. This is the moment the curse was born. She watched as Aldrich raised his hand. The nobles cried out, but he spoke no words, just a low chant, ancient, guttural. The hall went dark. When light returned, the nobles were gone, turned to shadows. Whispers filled the air. And Aldrich? He wept. When Evelyn awoke, her breath steamed in the cold air. She was no longer in the throne room of the past. She was lying on stone, damp, uneven, and ancient. A faint green glow pulsed along the walls. Roots hung from the low ceiling, and a steady dripping echoed somewhere in the dark. This place smelled of soil, metal, and something older, the scent of buried things. She sat up slowly. The chamber was narrow, like a tunnel carved out of earth and stone. A corridor stretched ahead, barely lit by strange moss that glowed like embers. In the silence, Evelyn heard whispers. Not voices, but something like memories breathing against her ear. She stood and followed the corridor. As she walked, symbols began to appear on the walls, carvings of a crown pierced by thorns, a woman holding a lantern in one hand and a sword in the other, a child with hollow eyes. Each one burned slightly when she passed, not in heat, but in emotion, sadness, fear, betrayal. Then the corridor opened into a vast chamber, and there it was, the heart of the curse. A massive stone circle lay embedded in the ground, etched with runes that pulsed like a dying heartbeat. In the center, an obsidian altar, cold and cracked. Chains hung from the ceiling above it, rusted with age and blood. On the altar lay a book, bound in black leather, no title. As Evelyn stepped forward, the whispers grew louder. The pages flipped on their own, and then a name appeared. Evelyn Gray. Her name, written in blood. Her knees buckled, her head spun. This curse, it wasn't just something she had stumbled into. She had always been a part of it. Suddenly the chamber shuddered. A cold wind swept through, extinguishing the moss light. In the darkness, something moved, heavy, breathing. A voice echoed from the far end of the room. blood remembers, so does the stone. Evelyn turned slowly. A figure emerged from the dark. It wasn't Aldrich. It was a woman, tall, shrouded in robes that seemed made from smoke and tears. Her eyes glowed faintly like dying stars. "You carry his curse, Vol," the woman said, "but you are not him." Evelyn tried to speak, but her throat was dry. The woman stepped closer. "You must choose, child of gray. Break the chain or become the next link." Evelyn stared into the woman's eyes, ancient, full of sorrow and knowledge. "Who are you?" she managed to whisper. The woman raised a bony hand and touched the air. Light shimmered, a vision blew. Before them stood a grand hall, lit by torches. Bookshelves stretched to the ceiling, overflowing with dusty tomes. Stained glass windows glowed red and blue as sunlight filtered through. "This was once the Library of Oaths," the woman said. "Before the castle was cursed, it held every secret of the kingdom." Evelyn watched as ghostly figures moved through the library. Nobles, scholars, guards. Then a man entered, tall, cloaked in silver robes. His face was masked. "That is Malric," the woman said, "the king's closest advisor, the traitor." Evelyn felt a cold rush down her spine. "He promised Aldrich eternal protection," the woman continued, her voice bitter. "But in truth, he bound the king's soul to the stone and fled, leaving the curse behind." The vision shifted. The library collapsed in flame and shadow. Screams, chains, blood on the marble floor. "Why show me this?" Evelyn asked. "Because the curse was never meant to last. There's still a way to end it." The woman extended her hand, and from her palm a small silver key appeared, delicate, carved with runes. "This opens the chamber of the final oath," she said, "where Malric sealed the pact. You must go there, but beware, he still walks these halls." Evelyn took the key. It was ice cold. Suddenly the chamber shook violently. Stones rained from the ceiling. The woman turned. "He knows you are here." A screech echoed in the distance. Inhuman, guttural. "Run!" the woman cried. Evelyn turned and fled back into the corridor, the silver key clenched tight in her hand. Behind her, shadows writhed. The moss glowed red now, like burning coals. As she ran, the whispers turned into screams, and from the end of the tunnel, a figure emerged, tall, cloaked in silver, waiting. The silver-cloaked figure advanced slowly through the dim tunnel, his footsteps eerily silent. Evelyn's breath came fast. She gripped the silver key tighter, her heart pounding like a war drum. "Malric," the woman's voice echoed in her mind, warning her. The figure stopped mere yards away, the flickering torchlight revealing the glint of a silver mask covering his face. Expressionless, cold. "Why have you come, child of Aldrich?" The voice was smooth but chilling. Evelyn swallowed her fear and spoke, voice steady despite the quake inside. "To end the curse, to free the souls trapped here, including my family's." Malric's laughter was a dry rasp echoing off the stone walls. "Foolish girl, the curse is my power. Without it, I am nothing." He lifted his hand and the shadows around them thickened, twisting into nightmarish shapes that writhe and hiss. "You cannot undo what was sealed by blood and betrayal." But Evelyn, fueled by determination and the hope of those lost, raised the silver key. A sharp light burst forth, cutting through the darkness like a blade. Malric recoiled, his mask cracking ever so slightly. "No, this cannot be," the woman's voice whispered from behind. "The key holds the final oath's power, the only way to break the chains." Evelyn stepped forward, feeling the weight of history and pain in every step. "Your reign ends now." Malric lunged, but Evelyn dodged, the battle for the castle's soul just beginning. The air thickened with tension as Evelyn and Malric clashed in the narrow corridor. Shadows swirled violently around them, twisting and reaching like living tendrils. Malric's silver mask gleamed under the flickering torchlight as he summoned dark energy with a sweep of his hand. Evelyn held the silver key forward, its light a beacon in the engulfing darkness. "You cannot defeat me," Malric snarled. "I am bound to this curse, eternal as the night." Evelyn dodged a strike of shadow that cracked the stone wall behind her. Her mind raced. She remembered the woman's words. The key was the only weapon that could break the pact. "The curse is your prison, not your power," Evelyn shouted. "You betrayed your king and doomed us all." Malric's form flickered, his cloak billowing like smoke. The darkness thinned around Evelyn's light, but it was not enough. The battle had only begun. Suddenly, the corridor trembled. Cracks appeared in the walls, and ancient runes glowed faintly beneath the stones. Evelyn realized the castle itself was waking, responding to the fight. "This place remembers," she whispered, "and it wants justice." With a surge of courage, Evelyn pressed the key against the nearest rune. A pulse of light exploded, sending Malric staggering back. "No, this cannot be!" Malric screamed, his voice breaking. The shadows around him began to unravel, exposing the man beneath the mask. Tired, broken, desperate, Evelyn took a steady breath. The moment was near. "This ends tonight, Malric. For Aldrich, for the castle, for all who suffer." Malric's shoulders sagged as the shadows unraveled. His mask shattered at his feet. The darkness that once empowered him now fled, leaving behind a hollow man haunted by regret. Evelyn lowered the silver key, her voice soft but firm. "Who were you before the curse, Malric?" The man's eyes, once cold and hard, flickered with pain. "A knight, loyal to King Aldrich. I was tasked to protect the castle, to serve honorably. But ambition, greed, I betrayed my oath." He knelt, the weight of his sins pressing down like the stone ceiling above. "I sought power beyond mortal limits. I made a pact with dark forces, sealing the fate of all within these walls." Evelyn's heart ached for the broken soul. "It's not too late to make things right. The key can free you. Free us all." Malric's lips trembled. For the first time in decades, hope kindled within him. "Will you help me?" She nodded, extending the silver key. "Together we end this curse, not with hatred, but with forgiveness." Outside, the castle seemed to breathe, ancient stones glowing faintly as if responding to their pact. The battle had shifted from vengeance to redemption. Evelyn and Malric descended into the ancient chamber beneath the castle, the heart of the curse. The air was thick with the scent of old incense and the echo of forgotten prayers. On the cold stone altar lay a faded scroll, inscribed with the final rites to break the pact that bound Malric and the castle in darkness. "This ritual requires the sacrifice of one's deepest regret," Evelyn explained, her voice steady. Malric's eyes reflected the flickering candlelight as he prepared himself. "I am ready for my sins, for the souls trapped here." Together they began the chant, words lost to time, weaving a tapestry of light and shadow. The castle trembled, stone shifting as if awakening from centuries of slumber. Malric reached deep within his heart, confronting memories of betrayal, loss, and greed. A tear traced down his cheek, a sign of the burden he carried. As the final words were spoken, a blinding light filled the chamber. The oppressive darkness peeled away, revealing the true soul of the castle, ancient, weary, but free. Evelyn looked at Malric, seeing not a monster, but a man redeemed. "It is done," she whispered. The curse was broken. The shadows finally lifted. As the first light of dawn pierced through the cracked windows of the castle, a profound silence filled the halls. The oppressive weight of centuries had lifted, replaced by a fragile peace. Evelyn stood at the grand balcony, gazing out over the mist-covered valley below. The village nearby stirred awake, unaware of the dark history now fading into legend. Malric, no longer a shadow of vengeance, walked beside her with a newfound calm. "What now?" he asked softly. "Now we rebuild," Evelyn replied. "Not just the castle, but the trust between the past and the future." They made their way through the castle's ancient corridors, lighting torches to awaken the long-forgotten chambers. Voices once silenced began to whisper in the wind, echoes of those freed from darkness. Though scars remained, hope blossomed like wildflowers on the castle grounds. The tale of the cursed knight was no longer one of despair, but a story of redemption and renewal. And as the sun rose higher, it promised a future where shadows no longer held sway. The castle's walls, once silent witnesses to centuries of pain and betrayal, now hummed faintly with a new energy, an echo of redemption reverberating through the stones. Evelyn wandered the grand hall, her fingers trailing along the cold marble pillars, feeling the residue of history mingled with the promise of renewal. Outside, the villagers gathered cautiously at the castle's gates, their faces a mix of curiosity and fear. Generations had heard the tales: the cursed night, the dark pact, the endless shadows. Yet now something was different. The oppressive gloom that had kept the castle shrouded in mystery was lifting, replaced by a subtle lightness that even the air seemed to carry. Evelyn called for a meeting in the village square, standing before a crowd, eager but wary. She spoke of the ritual, the sacrifice, and Malric's redemption. Slowly, the villagers' skepticism softened into hope. Among them was an elderly woman named Greta, her eyes sharp and voice firm. It is time to remember not only the curse, but the man who bore it. He was one of us once. The villagers nodded, understanding that the past was not simply a tale of evil, but a complex tapestry woven with human frailty. Meanwhile, Malric explored the castle's upper chambers, places untouched by darkness. In a dusty library, he found old journals and letters, remnants of a life he had long forgotten, pages filled with the laughter of loved ones, the struggles of a night torn between duty and desire, and dreams crushed beneath the weight of ambition. Each discovery chipped away at the bitterness inside him. He read of his father's warnings, of the promises he had broken, and of the consequences that had rippled through generations. One entry stood out, a letter to his beloved sister, Eleanor. "If you ever find this, know that I carried you in my heart, even when shadows consumed me. Forgive me for the pain I brought, and may your light guide me back." Malric clutched the letter to his chest, tears falling freely. For the first time, he understood that redemption was not only for himself, but for those he had hurt along the way. Days passed, and the castle slowly stirred back to life. Repairs began as villagers and Malric worked side by side, their hands mending what time had broken. The curse might have been lifted, but scars remained, both in stone and spirit. Yet the bonds forged through forgiveness and labor promised a new legacy, one built not on fear, but on hope. That night, as Evelyn walked the ramparts, a soft breeze carried a whisper, a voice neither fully present nor gone. "Thank you." The words faded into the night, but their meaning lingered, a reminder that even in darkness, light can find a way. Despite the growing hope and gradual restoration of the castle, a sense of unease lingered beneath the surface. Evelyn and Malric had uncovered many secrets, yet the castle still held mysteries that refused to reveal themselves. Whispers in the wind spoke of a hidden chamber, a place sealed away since the days of the curse, a chamber said to contain the truth that could either heal or destroy what remained. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Evelyn discovered a faint outline of a door concealed behind an ancient tapestry in the west wing. The fabric was worn and faded, depicting scenes of nights and battles long forgotten. But behind it, the stone wall held a secret. Her fingers traced the cold surface until she found a small, nearly invisible latch. Calling Malric, they worked together to unlock the door, the mechanism creaking as it gave way. Beyond lay a narrow staircase spiraling down into darkness. With torches lit, they descended cautiously. The air grew colder, heavier, thick with the scent of dust and time. At the bottom, a heavy oak door barred their way, covered in strange runes glowing faintly in the torchlight. Malric examined the symbols, recognizing fragments of ancient protective spells mixed with warnings. They pushed open the door, revealing a small chamber lined with shelves filled with old scrolls, leather-bound books, and jars containing peculiar substances. In the center of the room lay a stone pedestal with an open tome, the diary of the original lord of the castle, Lord Aldrich, who had lived 2 centuries before. Evelyn picked it up reverently. The pages detailed a tragic tale. Lord Aldrich, a man torn between loyalty to his king and forbidden love for a sorceress named Isolde. His desire to protect her led him to strike a dark bargain with a mysterious entity, unleashing the curse that plagued the castle ever since. The diary revealed that the curse was not just punishment, but a desperate attempt to save Isolde's life, one that had spiraled out of control. As Evelyn read aloud, Malric's face grew pale. The story echoed his own past, yet it offered a glimmer of hope that the curse could be undone if only the truth was fully understood and accepted. Suddenly, a cold gust extinguished their torches, plunging them into darkness. A whisper filled the chamber. Only the truth can set us free. Evelyn and Malric exchanged glances, realizing their journey was far from over. The hidden chamber had revealed the heart of the curse, but to break it, they would have to face shadows deeper than they had ever imagined. The chilling whisper still echoed faintly in the hidden chamber as Evelyn and Malric fumbled to relight their torches. The flickering flames cast dancing shadows across the walls, bringing the ancient room to life once more. The weight of Lord Aldrich's diary lay heavily in Evelyn's hands. It was as if the past itself was reaching out through the pages, begging to be heard. As they carefully explored the chamber, Evelyn found a loose stone in the wall. Prying it open, she discovered a small, dust-covered box. Inside lay several folded letters, sealed with a wax emblem depicting a black raven. Unfolding the first letter, they found it was written by Isolde herself. The words, written in delicate script, revealed her fears and hopes during the darkest days of the curse. She spoke of a secret ritual to break the curse, one that required a sacrifice of love and truth. Isolde's letters also hinted at a forgotten ally, a guardian who had been entrusted with the secret of the ritual, but whose identity was lost to time. This guardian, Isolde wrote, had once walked the castle halls and might still watch over the ruins, waiting for the right moment to intervene. The discovery was both hopeful and terrifying. If this guardian truly existed, finding them could mean salvation. But the risk was clear. The ritual's price was steep, and failure would doom them all. Suddenly, a faint sound echoed from deeper within the castle, a soft rhythmic tapping, almost like footsteps. Evelyn and Malric exchanged a glance. Someone else was there. They extinguished their torches and moved silently through the shadowed corridors, guided only by the faint tapping and their pounding hearts. The castle seemed alive, its stones whispering secrets in the darkness. As they followed the sound, memories surfaced, visions of the castle's glory days, echoes of laughter and sorrow, betrayal and sacrifice. At the end of a narrow passage, they found an old well covered in ivy and moss. The tapping continued, emanating from its depths. Malric peered down cautiously. The darkness seemed endless. Then a low voice called out, faint but unmistakable. Who seeks the truth beneath the stone? Evelyn stepped forward, voice steady despite her fear. We seek the guardian, and the way to end the curse. Silence followed. Then, a whisper carried on the cold air. Truth and sacrifice walk hand in hand. Are you prepared to pay the price? The journey into the castle's darkest secrets had only just begun. Evelyn and Malric knew that to save the castle and themselves, they would have to face the past and the sacrifices it demanded. Evelyn and Malric stood frozen by the edge of the ancient well, their breaths shallow in the cold, damp air. The voice from the darkness lingered, like a haunting melody, mysterious and commanding. "We seek the truth and the salvation of this cursed place," Evelyn declared, her voice steady despite the fear that tightened her chest. "We are willing to face any trial." The silence stretched unbearably. Then from the shadows emerged a figure cloaked in tattered black robes. The stranger's face was obscured beneath a deep hood, but the eyes that gleamed beneath the veil held centuries of sorrow and wisdom. "I am the guardian you seek," the figure spoke, voice low and gravelly. "But no one passes my test without sacrifice. The curse was born from betrayal, and only truth and courage can break its chains." Malric stepped forward, sword sheathed but ready. "Tell us what must be done." The guardian's gaze pierced them. "You must journey to the Hall of Mirrors. There, your deepest fears will be revealed, and you will confront the darkness within your own souls. Only by embracing your truths and conquering your fears will the path to the ritual open." Evelyn's heart pounded. The Hall of Mirrors was a place spoken of only in whispers, an ancient chamber where illusions blurred with reality, and many had lost themselves forever. "Are you prepared?" the guardian asked. "We have no choice," Evelyn answered. With a wave of the guardian's hand, a hidden door swung open behind the well, revealing a spiral staircase leading downward, disappearing into shadow. As they descended, Evelyn felt the air grow colder, heavier, as if the weight of the past pressed upon her shoulders. The walls around them shimmered, reflecting countless images that twisted and morphed with every step. At the bottom, they entered a vast chamber lined with towering mirrors, their surfaces rippling like water. Evelyn caught a glimpse of herself, but the reflection was distorted, her eyes hollow and haunted. Suddenly, the chamber darkened, and sinister whispers filled the air, echoing with accusations and regrets. Shadows flickered at the edges of the mirrors, shapes shifting into faces from their past. Evelyn faced a vision of Lady Isolde, her eyes filled with pain and betrayal. "You cannot run from the past," Isolde's ghostly voice whispered. "To heal, you must understand." Malric confronted his own torment, a memory of his failure to protect his brother during the war, the guilt heavy as chains around his heart. Together, they faced their fears and doubts, stepping through each reflection, acknowledging the truths hidden deep within. Hours passed like moments as they journeyed through their own souls, emerging exhausted, changed. The guardian awaited them at the staircase, nodding solemnly. "You have passed the test," the guardian said. "Now you are ready to seek the ritual's power, but beware, the final step will demand the greatest sacrifice." Evelyn and Malric exchanged determined glances, knowing the worst was yet to come. As Evelyn and Malric emerged from the Hall of Mirrors, their bodies weary but spirits resolute, the cold silence of the castle corridor wrapped around them like a shroud. The faint flicker of torchlight danced against the ancient stone walls, casting elongated shadows that seemed to move with a will of their own. "The ritual chamber lies beyond the eastern wing," Malric whispered, clutching his sword as if it were both a weapon and a talisman. "We must hurry before the curse tightens its grip again." Evelyn nodded, every step echoing ominously in the hollow passage. Memories of the tortured souls trapped within the castle's cursed walls pressed upon her mind like invisible hands, begging for release yet warning of danger. Suddenly, from the gloom ahead, a chilling whisper slid through the air. It was a low, sibilant voice that seemed to come from every corner, and no corner at once. "Turn back. Leave this place. The curse demands blood." Malric's grip tightened on his sword, eyes scanning the shadows. "Do you hear that?" Evelyn swallowed hard. "The castle itself is warning us, but we have come too far to turn away." Their footsteps quickened, but the whispers grew louder and more urgent. They seemed to seep from the very stones, ancient voices steeped in sorrow and rage. At the end of the corridor, a massive oak door barred their path, carved with strange runes that pulsed faintly with an eerie blue light. Evelyn reached out, her fingers trembling as they brushed against the cold wood. The door creaked open slowly, revealing the ritual chamber, a vast circular room adorned with faded tapestries depicting battles long past and scenes of sorrowful lament. In the center stood a stone altar, stained dark with the passage of countless years. Malric stepped forward, placing a hand on the altar. "This is it, the heart of the curse." Evelyn took a deep breath, recalling the Guardian's warning about sacrifice. She scanned the room, searching for the relics or symbols mentioned in the ancient text they had uncovered. Her eyes fell upon a small, dust-covered box resting atop a pedestal. As she lifted its lid, a soft glow illuminated the chamber. Inside lay an ornate dagger, its blade inscribed with runes of protection and binding. "The ritual calls for this," Evelyn whispered. "But who must make the sacrifice?" Before Malric could answer, the shadows around them deepened, coalescing into ghostly figures. The souls of those who had perished within the castle's walls, their faces twisted in anguish. A cold wind swept through the chamber, extinguishing the torches and plunging them into darkness. From the void came a voice, ancient and commanding. "To break the curse, a life must be given willingly. Only through selfless sacrifice can the souls be freed." Evelyn and Malric exchanged a look heavy with understanding. The path ahead demanded not only courage, but the ultimate price. As the ghostly figures reached toward them, Evelyn stepped forward, clutching the dagger tightly. "For the souls trapped here," she vowed, "I will do what is necessary." Malric placed a steadying hand on her shoulder, the weight of the moment settling upon them both. The chamber trembled, shadows swirling wildly as the ritual began. A final battle between the living and the dead, the past and the present, darkness and light. The chamber trembled as Evelyn gripped the ornate dagger, its cold weight anchoring her resolve. Around them, the spectral figures swirled like a tempest, faces twisted with longing and torment. The air was thick with a tangible dread, a moment suspended between worlds. Malric's voice cut through the darkness, steady and commanding. "Evelyn, you must focus. The ritual demands your will, not just your heart." She nodded, swallowing the fear that clawed at her throat. Taking a deep breath, she stepped onto the altar, the stone cold beneath her bare feet. The runes on the blade pulsed faintly in response, as if awakening to her determination. With trembling hands, she raised the dagger and whispered the incantation she had painstakingly memorized from the ancient scrolls. The words felt foreign yet powerful, echoing through the chamber like an otherworldly chant. The ghostly figures drew closer, their whispers merging into a haunting chorus. Evelyn felt the weight of their suffering, centuries of pain compressed into this single moment. Suddenly, a searing pain shot through her palm as the dagger sliced into her skin. Blood welled up, dripping onto the altar stone. The spirits howled, a sound that echoed like thunder, shaking the very foundations of the castle. Yet Evelyn did not falter. She pressed the blade into the altar, letting her blood mingle with the ancient stone. The runes flared with intense light, illuminating the chamber in a spectral glow. The spirits writhed and screamed, then slowly began to dissolve into wisps of light. One by one, the faces of the tormented transformed, from anguished souls into peaceful beings freed from their eternal chains. Malric watched in awe, stepping forward to support Evelyn as the ritual reached its climax. The air grew still, the oppressive darkness lifting like a veil. A final voice echoed through the chamber, soft and grateful. "Thank you, bearer of sacrifice. The curse is broken. The souls may rest." Evelyn collapsed, drained but filled with a strange peace. Malric caught her, steadying her trembling form. Outside the chamber, the first rays of dawn pierced through the castle's ancient windows. Light spilled into the long shadows, promising a new beginning. The curse of the castle was lifted, but the echoes of its dark past would linger. A reminder of sacrifice, courage, and the eternal struggle between light and shadow. The dawn had broken fully, casting golden rays through the shattered stained glass windows of the ancient castle. The once oppressive atmosphere was now replaced by a fragile calmness, a delicate balance between hope and the weight of memories. Evelyn sat on the cold stone floor, wrapped in a heavy cloak, her mind racing to process the events of the night. The ritual had freed the trapped souls, but the castle itself seemed to exhale a weary sigh, as if years of darkness and despair were slowly lifting, but the scars remained. Malric paced near the arched doorway, his face etched with both relief and concern. The curse is broken, yes, but the castle still holds its secrets. The darkness we banished was only a fragment of something greater. Evelyn nodded silently. She had sensed this too. The eerie quiet that followed the storm was not the end, but a fragile truce. From the depths of the chamber, a faint glow flickered. The altar stone, once pulsating with arcane power, now lay dull but unbroken. Evelyn reached out, her fingers brushing its surface. The stone was cold, yet beneath it, she felt a faint heartbeat, a remnant of the ancient magic that had bound the castle for centuries. Outside, the castle grounds began to stir. The wind carried whispers of the past, rustling through the ancient trees and overgrown gardens. Evelyn knew that the story of the castle was far from over. The villagers who had long feared the place gathered cautiously at the edge of the forest. Their faces showed a mixture of awe and wariness as they looked upon the castle in the early light. Some whispered prayers, others exchanged hopeful glances. Malric approached the group, his voice steady as he addressed them. "The darkness that plagued our home has been lifted, but we must remain vigilant. The past has a way of returning if we forget its lessons." Evelyn stood beside him, feeling the weight of responsibility settle over her. The castle was no longer just a place of fear and mystery. It was a symbol of resilience and redemption. As the sun climbed higher, casting long shadows behind them, Evelyn made a silent vow. She would protect the legacy of the castle, honor the souls who had suffered, and ensure that the light never faded again. The journey ahead would be difficult, filled with challenges and revelations. But for the first time in centuries, hope had taken root in the heart of the cursed castle. The morning mist clung tightly to the forest surrounding the castle, wrapping the ancient trees and forgotten paths in a ghostly veil. Though the curse had been lifted, Evelyn felt an uneasy presence lingering in the air, as if the very stones held memories too painful to fully fade. As she walked cautiously through the gardens, overgrown with ivy and wildflowers, Evelyn's thoughts drifted to the journal she had found buried deep within the castle's library. The pages detailed the life of Lord Armand, the castle's original lord, whose obsession with dark magic had set the curse in motion centuries ago. Determined to understand more, Evelyn retraced her steps to the dusty library. She lit a candle, the flickering flame casting long shadows against the walls lined with the ancient tomes. Carefully, she opened the journal to a chapter that described a secret chamber, one that no one had found for generations. The entry was cryptic. Beneath the floor where shadows gather, the truth lies hidden. The light that banishes darkness must first confront the heart of the void. Intrigued and unsettled, Evelyn examined the floorboards near the hearth. Her fingers traced the worn wood until she discovered a faint outline of a trapdoor. With a deep breath, she lifted the heavy wood, revealing a narrow staircase spiraling down into darkness. The air was damp and cold as she descended, the silence broken only by the soft echo of her footsteps. At the bottom, Evelyn found herself in a circular chamber carved from stone, walls etched with symbols that pulsed faintly with a forgotten power. In the center stood a pedestal, upon which rested an ancient book bound in cracked leather. She opened it carefully and read aloud the faded words inscribed on the first page. To break the cycle of shadows, one must face the past's deepest fear. Suddenly, the chamber grew icy cold. The flickering candlelight dimmed, and Evelyn felt a presence behind her. Turning swiftly, she saw a faint apparition, a figure cloaked in tattered robes, eyes glowing with sorrow and rage. "Why do you disturb my rest?" the ghostly voice whispered, chilling her to the bone. Evelyn steadied her voice. "I seek to end the suffering, to bring peace to this place." The spirit's gaze softened, revealing a glimpse of the tortured soul beneath. "Then you must face what lies beneath the curse, the betrayal, the blood spilled in darkness, and the price of power sought without mercy." As the apparition faded, Evelyn felt the weight of her quest deepen. The castle's history was more tangled and painful than she had imagined. To bring true peace, she would have to uncover the darkest secrets and confront the ghosts of betrayal long buried. Back above, the castle seemed to watch her with ancient eyes, waiting for the truth to be unearthed. The chill of the hidden chamber still clung to Evelyn's skin as she climbed back up the spiral staircase, the heavy tome pressed tightly to her chest. The words within had opened a new door in her mind, a story of a pact made in blood and shadow that bound Lord Armand's fate and that of the castle itself. Back in the dusty library, Evelyn spread the book across an ancient oak table, the leather cover creaking as she carefully turned the fragile pages. The journal chronicled a secret meeting held in the dead of night, deep within the castle's dungeons. It spoke of a dark alliance formed between Armand and a mysterious entity known only as the Veil, a shadowy figure that promised power beyond imagination, but demanded a terrible price. As she read, Evelyn's heart pounded. The pact required a sacrifice, the blood of an innocent spilled on the altar of the unseen to bind the castle to the Veil's will. This was the origin of the curse, the source of the relentless torment that had haunted generations. Determined to find proof, Evelyn returned to the dungeon beneath the castle, where cold stone walls whispered secrets long buried. She lit a lantern, its flame trembling as she descended into the darkness. The air grew heavier, thick with the scent of damp earth and forgotten fear. There, hidden beneath rubble and dust, Evelyn uncovered a faded tapestry depicting the ritual. It showed Armand kneeling before a cloaked figure, a chalice held high, blood dripping onto an ancient altar carved with arcane runes. The tapestry was more than a picture. It was a warning, a map to the final truth. Her fingers traced the symbols on the altar, and a sudden vision overwhelmed her. She saw the night of the pact unfold, a storm raging outside, lightning illuminating the grim faces of those who gathered, the sharp sound of steel and whispered incantations. The ritual had sealed their fates, binding the castle's soul to darkness, dooming those who lived within its walls. Evelyn's resolve hardened. To break the curse completely, she would need to find the altar and perform the counter ritual, a rite of cleansing fueled by light and sacrifice. But first, she had to locate the altar itself, hidden somewhere within the vast underground labyrinth beneath the castle. With the tapestry as her guide, Evelyn ventured deeper into the winding tunnels, each step echoing in the silence. Shadows seemed to twist and shift around her, whispering names long forgotten. The weight of history pressed down, but she pressed on, Driven by the hope of redemption and the need to end the nightmare, hours passed, the labyrinth testing her endurance and courage. Just as despair began to creep in, Evelyn spotted a faint glow ahead. Approaching cautiously, she found a large chamber bathed in an eerie bluish light. In its center stood the altar, just as the tapestry had shown. The air crackled with ancient power. Evelyn steadied herself, ready to face whatever darkness still lingered. The final confrontation was near, and the fate of the castle, and perhaps her own soul, hung in the balance. The chamber where Evelyn stood was unlike any she had ever encountered in the castle's bowels. The bluish light radiated from ancient crystals embedded in the walls, casting eerie shadows that danced like ghosts around the stone altar. Every breath she took seemed to stir the air with whispers of the past. She carefully unpacked the items she had brought: herbs for purification, a silver dagger, candles infused with sacred oils, and the last page of the tome, containing the instructions for the counter ritual. The book had warned that the ritual required unwavering courage, pure intention, and the willingness to offer a personal sacrifice. As she arranged the candles in a circle around the altar, Evelyn's mind raced with memories of the victims, the countless souls trapped within the castle's cursed walls. She thought of the servants who vanished without a trace, the soldiers who died defending the fortress, and the innocent children whose laughter had long been silenced. Lighting the candles, Evelyn began chanting the incantations etched in the tome. The words felt ancient and powerful, vibrating in the air like the pulse of the castle's dark heart. The crystals on the walls responded, glowing brighter, as if awakening from a centuries-old slumber. Suddenly, a cold wind swept through the chamber, extinguishing some of the candles and chilling Evelyn to the bone. The shadowy figure of the veil appeared, coalescing from the darkness near the altar. Its presence was overwhelming, a force of malice and sorrow intertwined. "You dare challenge the pact!" the voice hissed, echoing through the chamber like a serpent's whisper. Evelyn stood firm, clutching the silver dagger tightly. "I will break your hold over this place. Your darkness will no longer claim innocent souls." The veil laughed, a sound that chilled the blood. "Then sacrifice yourself, or be consumed by the curse forever." With a steady hand, Evelyn pricked her palm with the dagger, letting a few drops of blood fall onto the altar's runes. The blood glowed, reacting with the light of the candles and the power of her words. The chamber trembled as the ritual reached its climax. The veil screamed in fury, its form flickering like a dying flame. Shadows shattered, and the oppressive weight in the air began to lift. The crystal's glow softened, and the castle seemed to breathe anew. Evelyn collapsed to her knees, exhausted but victorious. The curse was broken, but she knew the castle's scars would remain, a reminder of the darkness once harbored within. As dawn's first light filtered through the cracks in the chamber's ceiling, Evelyn vowed to restore the castle and honor the memories of those lost to the shadow. The dawn after the ritual brought a fragile peace to the castle. The heavy darkness that had suffocated the halls for centuries seemed to lift, revealing the faded grandeur beneath layers of decay and shadow. Yet Evelyn knew that breaking the curse was only the beginning. Her first steps were cautious as she explored the main hall. Dust particles floated in shafts of early sunlight, filtering through shattered stained glass. The once magnificent tapestries hung tattered, their stories barely discernible. But something had changed. An energy pulsed faintly in the air, as if the castle itself was breathing anew. Evelyn felt drawn to the ancient library, a place rumored to hold secrets lost to time. Its massive oak doors creaked open, revealing rows of towering shelves filled with scrolls and tomes. She carefully traced her fingers over the spines, seeking clues about the origins of the curse and the mysterious ancients mentioned in cryptic passages. Hours passed, and as the sun climbed higher, Evelyn uncovered a hidden compartment beneath a loose floorboard. Inside lay a fragile leather-bound manuscript, its pages yellowed but remarkably preserved. The script was indecipherable at first, but as she stared, the letters seemed to rearrange themselves, revealing a message. When the curse is lifted, the ancients shall rise, and with them, the past will reclaim its due. Prepare, for the shadows are not yet vanquished. A chill ran down Evelyn's spine. The ancients, entities whispered about in fearful legends, were more than myth. They were bound to the castle, dormant but waiting. That evening, as Evelyn reviewed her findings, a low rumble echoed through the stone walls. The castle shuddered as if stirred by an unseen force. Outside, the wind howled through the barren trees, and the sky darkened with unnatural clouds. The ground beneath the castle quaked, and from the depths below, ancient runes etched in the stone began to glow with an eerie blue light. Evelyn's heart pounded as she realized the ritual had awakened more than just the curse's hold. It had stirred the very essence of the ancients. Her quest had become far more perilous. To save the castle, and perhaps her own soul, Evelyn would need to confront these primordial forces. The shadows she thought defeated were only the beginning of a far darker reckoning. The castle's awakening had set a chain of events into motion, far beyond Evelyn's initial understanding. The ethereal glow from the ancient runes spread like veins through the stone walls, illuminating forgotten chambers and secret passages that had been sealed for centuries. Shadows danced along the corridors, whispering in tongues older than time itself. Evelyn knew she could no longer remain a passive observer. She gathered what little strength she had left and descended into the catacombs beneath the castle. The air grew colder with every step, thick with the scent of damp earth and decay. Flickering torchlight revealed carvings on the walls, depictions of battles, rituals, and faces twisted in agony. As she moved deeper, the whispers grew louder, forming words she could almost understand. Return? Return? The ancients call for justice. She clutched the manuscript tighter, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. This was no longer just about lifting a curse. It was about confronting a force that had slumbered for centuries, waiting for the right moment to reclaim its power. Suddenly, the ground trembled beneath her feet. A massive stone door groaned open, revealing a cavernous chamber bathed in blue light. At its center stood a pedestal, upon which rested an ancient relic, a crown encrusted with gemstones that pulsed with eerie energy. Evelyn approached cautiously. The moment her fingers brushed the crown, a surge of visions overwhelmed her mind. Battles fought in blood and fire, betrayals that shattered kingdoms, and a vow made by the ancients to return and restore balance. The vision faded, leaving Evelyn gasping for breath. She now understood that the ancients were not mere spirits, but powerful entities bound to the fate of the castle and the land around it. Their awakening could bring salvation or destruction. As she turned to leave, a cold voice echoed from the shadows. "You have awoken us, mortal. Now you must choose. Serve us or perish." Evelyn's resolve hardened. She would not bow to darkness, no matter the cost. But she knew the storm gathering outside was only the beginning of a battle that would test her very soul. Evelyn stood frozen, her breath caught between fear and defiance. The voice that echoed through the cavern was not merely cold. It was ancient, saturated with a power that felt as old as the stones around her. The crown she still held pulsed faintly in her hands, its eerie light casting long shadows on the chamber walls. "You must choose quickly," the voice continued, its tone commanding yet patient. "Align with us, and the power of the ancients will be yours to wield. Resist, and you shall become part of the castle's eternal lament. Memories flooded Evelyn's mind. Tales her grandfather once told her of the castle's cursed rulers, doomed to wander its halls for eternity, trapped by their own hubris and betrayal. She had always dismissed them as superstition, but now she faced the reality of that curse. The chamber's walls seemed to breathe, ancient runes glowing brighter as if responding to her hesitation. The air thickened with energy, the weight of countless souls pressing down on her. She closed her eyes, searching within for courage. "What do you want from me?" she whispered. The voice softened, almost mournful. "Balance. The curse was born of betrayal and bloodshed. Only through your sacrifice can the scales be tipped. Choose to serve us, and the darkness will be contained. Reject us, and chaos will consume this land once more." Evelyn's mind raced. Could she bear the price? To serve an ancient, possibly malevolent force, even if it promised control, seemed a fate worse than death. Yet to refuse meant risking destruction for all she loved. Her fingers tightened around the crown. Then, with a sudden resolve, she placed it upon her head. A shock of cold fire surged through her veins, a torrent of voices crashing into her consciousness. She staggered, visions swimming with faces of the ancients, warriors, kings, sorcerers, their expressions a tangled web of sorrow, wrath, and hope. "You have chosen," the voice declared. "Now the true battle begins." Outside the chamber, the castle trembled violently. Windows shattered, stone cracked, and an unnatural storm raged, lightning illuminating spectral figures gathering on the battlements. The awakening was no longer contained. Evelyn, now bound to the ancients, felt the weight of her decision settle like a chain around her soul. The curse had found a new bearer, but would she become its master or its prisoner? The castle's stones trembled under an unseen force, as if centuries of silence were breaking free. Evelyn's mind was a storm of memories not her own, flashes of battles, lost kingdoms, and voices calling out from the abyss of time. The power within her grew, not as a gift, but as a weight, heavy and relentless. The chamber around her shifted, walls fading into mist as ghostly figures emerged. Warriors clad in armor, faces etched with sorrow and fury, sorcerers whose eyes burned with ancient fire. They spoke without words, their intentions clear. The ancients were awakening, and their era would be reborn through her. Evelyn staggered, her thoughts fragmented by the barrage of spectral memories. She saw the rise and fall of empires, the blood spilled in vain, the betrayal that cursed the castle to its endless torment. These spirits were bound by chains, forged from treachery and pain, and now they sought release. "Will you be our vessel?" one asked, his voice a whisper carried on the wind. She swallowed hard. The crown on her head burned like a brand, searing her flesh and soul alike. To accept meant surrendering herself to the ancient's will, but to resist meant losing her mind to the shadows creeping at the edge of her consciousness. Evelyn took a deep breath, her resolve hardening. "I will not be your prisoner, but I will carry your burden, to end this curse, not prolong it." The spirits seemed to hesitate, a flicker of surprise crossing their ethereal faces. A mortal who dares to defy the curse? As if in answer, a violent tremor shook the castle, stones crumbling and dust swirling through the air. The sky outside darkened to an unnatural black, lightning striking the highest towers with deafening cracks. Evelyn steadied herself, feeling the merging of past and present within her. The ancient's power surged, yet so did her own will. She was no longer just a bearer of the curse. She was its challenger. The chamber filled with a blinding light, the spirits retreating but promising they would return. Evelyn knew this was only the beginning. To break the curse, she would need allies. and to face enemies lurking not just in the shadows of the castle, but within the hearts of those she once trusted. As the storm outside raged on, Evelyn stepped from the chamber, her eyes blazing with determination. The battle for the soul of the castle, and for her own soul, had truly begun. The castle's eerie silence was broken only by the distant rumble of thunder and the soft footsteps of Evelyn as she made her way through the ancient halls. Her heart pounded with a mix of fear and resolve. The spirits of the ancients had left her with a chilling warning, but also a glimmer of hope. She was not alone in this fight. Evelyn knew she needed allies, but whom could she trust? The villagers in the nearby town whispered of curses and dark magic, their eyes filled with suspicion whenever she approached. Her only real connection was to Father Matthias, the aging priest who had long studied the castle's history. Despite his cautious demeanor, he had always offered her guidance. She found him in the small chapel hidden beneath the castle, surrounded by ancient texts and fading candlelight. His face lit up with a mixture of concern and relief when he saw her. "You've seen them," he said softly, "the ancients." Evelyn nodded. "They want to use me to resurrect their reign of terror." Father Matthias sighed deeply. "The curse is tied to the bloodline of the original rulers. You are the last descendant, but there is a way to break the cycle, an ancient ritual that requires both courage and sacrifice." He handed her a worn parchment, its edges brittle with age. The ritual demanded a sacred relic hidden deep within the catacombs beneath the castle, a relic said to contain the power to bind or banish the spirits forever. "We will need more than just faith," Father Matthias warned. "You will need protection. The castle's dark forces are stirring, and not all of them are bound by the same rules." Evelyn's thoughts raced. She needed someone to guard her back, someone familiar with the castle's secrets and its dangers. Just then, a shadow moved at the edge of the chapel. A figure stepped forward. Lucas, a former soldier turned mercenary who had once served the castle's lords. Hardened by years of battle and haunted by his own past, Lucas was a man of few words, but undeniable loyalty. "I heard what you said," Lucas murmured, "and I'm in. The castle took everything from me once. I won't let it destroy you too." With Father Matthias's blessings and Lucas's protection, Evelyn felt a renewed sense of purpose. Together they would venture into the catacombs to retrieve the relic, confront the spirits, and break the curse that had plagued the castle for centuries. As the storm outside intensified, the trio prepared themselves for the descent into darkness. Every step would be fraught with peril, and the line between friend and foe would blur in the shadows. But Evelyn knew one thing for certain. She was no longer a lone bearer of the curse. With allies by her side, she might just have a chance to save the castle and herself. The narrow staircase spiraled downward, each step carved centuries ago, slick with dampness and covered in a thin layer of dust. Evelyn led the way, clutching the ancient parchment tightly in one hand, while Lucas followed close behind, his hand never straying far from the hilt of his dagger. Father Matthias's lantern cast flickering shadows on the walls, illuminating faded frescoes that told forgotten tales of glory and tragedy. The air grew colder with every step, thick with the scent of earth and decay. The castle above felt miles away. Here, in the bowels of the earth, time seemed suspended. As they reached the catacombs, the oppressive silence was suddenly broken by a low guttural growl echoing through the stone corridors. Lucas tensed, his eyes scanning the darkness. "Stay close," he whispered. "Something's here with us." Evelyn's breath caught in her throat. The stories of restless spirits and cursed guardians felt real in this suffocating gloom. They moved cautiously, guided only by the lantern's feeble light and the cryptic instructions etched on the parchment. The map led them deeper into a labyrinth of narrow tunnels and crypt chambers. Bones crunched beneath their feet, and faded inscriptions warned of death for those who dared disturb the resting place of the ancients. Suddenly the passage opened into a vast underground chamber. In the center stood an ornate pedestal carved from black stone, holding a small, intricately designed box, the relic. Evelyn stepped forward, heart pounding. As her fingers brushed the relic, a chilling wind swept through the chamber, extinguishing the lantern's flame. Darkness swallowed them whole. Whispers rose from the shadows, voices of the ancients speaking in a language older than time. Shadows coalesced into ghostly figures, their eyes glowing with otherworldly light. "Who dares claim our power?" a voice thundered. Lucas stepped protectively in front of Evelyn, dagger drawn. "We come to end your curse, not to wield it." The spirits hissed, advancing. Evelyn closed her eyes, recalling Father Matthias's words. The ritual required both courage and sacrifice. She began chanting the ancient incantation, her voice steady despite the terror creeping up her spine. The chamber trembled as the relic glowed with blinding light. The spirits screamed, their forms dissolving into wisps of smoke. The oppressive darkness lifted, replaced by a warm, golden glow. When the light faded, Evelyn found herself alone with Lucas and Father Matthias. The relic pulsed gently in her hand, its power now tamed. They had succeeded in retrieving the relic, but the journey was far from over. The true test, performing the ritual to break the curse, awaited them above in the heart of the castle. The morning sun cast a pale light through the tall stained glass windows of the castle's grand hall. The air inside was heavy, charged with anticipation and ancient magic. Evelyn, Lucas, and Father Matthias stood before the altar, the relic cradled carefully in Evelyn's hands. The echoes of their footsteps and the soft murmurs of prayers were the only sounds breaking the solemn silence. Father Matthias began the preparation, chanting sacred verses passed down through generations. His voice was calm yet commanding, resonating with a power that seemed to stir the very stones of the castle. The relic emitted a faint glow, pulsing gently like a heartbeat, as if alive and aware of the moment's gravity. Evelyn felt a strange warmth emanate from the relic, seeping into her palms and flowing through her veins. She closed her eyes, drawing strength from the ancient words and the faith that had guided her thus far. The ritual required more than words. It demanded a sacrifice. Father Matthias explained that only one willing to give a part of their own soul could break the curse binding the castle and its restless spirits. Lucas stepped forward without hesitation. "I offer myself," he said firmly, "for the castle, for those lost, for Evelyn and all who seek peace." Evelyn's eyes filled with tears, but she nodded in gratitude and sorrow. The priest raised his hands and a circle of glowing runes appeared around them, illuminating the hall with an ethereal light. As the ritual began, the relic floated above the altar, radiating blinding energy. Lucas knelt inside the circle, the glow enveloping him like a cocoon. He seemed serene, as if accepting a fate greater than himself. The castle trembled violently. Distant walls cracked and dust rained from the vaulted ceiling. Ghostly figures appeared, drawn to the ritual's power. Some wept silently, others screamed in anguish, trapped between worlds. Evelyn chanted alongside Father Matthias, her voice steady despite the chaos. She could feel Lucas's life force intertwining with the relic, a thread binding past sins to future redemption. Minutes stretched into an eternity. Then a sudden burst of light erupted, engulfing the hall in brilliance. When the glow faded, Lucas lay motionless but peaceful. Father Matthias approached, placing a hand on Evelyn's shoulder. "The curse is lifted," he said quietly, "but at a cost. The castle is free, but our friend has crossed the threshold." Evelyn knelt beside Lucas, tears streaming. The weight of loss mingled with hope, Hope that the castle's shadows would finally rest and that the past's dark grip had loosened. Outside, the first birds of dawn sang, as if welcoming a new beginning for the ancient fortress and those who dared to reclaim its haunted legacy. The grand hall, once a place of shadows and whispers, now seemed transformed. The air felt lighter, as though a great weight had been lifted from the ancient stones. Yet beneath this newfound peace, a subtle tension lingered. The castle's mysteries were far from fully unveiled. Evelyn sat quietly beside Lucas's still form, her mind awash with conflicting emotions. Relief battled grief, hope intertwined with doubt. She gently brushed a lock of hair from his pale face, tracing the faint pulse of life that still remained. Though the ritual had exacted its toll, it had also broken the chains binding the restless spirits to the castle's walls. Father Matthias stood by the altar, deep in thought. The curse was powerful, rooted in centuries of pain and betrayal, he said softly. But rituals such as this, when performed with true sacrifice, can sever even the darkest bonds. Outside the hall, the first signs of dawn crept through the towering windows, painting the ancient tapestries with soft gold. The castle's ghosts, once anguished and trapped, seemed calmer now. Their forms flickered like candle flames, no longer tormenting but watching, waiting. Evelyn rose, determination settling in her chest. The battle was far from over. The curse may have been lifted, but the scars it left on the land, on the people, on her soul, would take time to heal. She knew the next steps were crucial. The castle needed more than just the breaking of a curse. It needed restoration, understanding, and forgiveness. Evelyn vowed to seek out the hidden truths buried in dusty tomes and forgotten letters scattered throughout the castle's vast library. As she made her way through the dim corridors, echoes of the past whispered to her. Tales of nobility and treachery, love and loss, war and peace. Each room held secrets waiting to be unearthed, and Evelyn was determined to piece together the story that time had almost erased. Her footsteps led her to a dusty study, where faded parchments lay piled on an ancient oak desk. Carefully she began to read the faded ink, tracing the lives of those who had once called the castle home. One document spoke of a forbidden love between the lord of the castle and a woman from a rival family, a love that had sparked a deadly feud and ultimately the curse itself. Another recounted the tragic death of a child whose spirit was said to haunt the upper towers. Hours passed as Evelyn delved deeper into the history, each revelation casting new light on the events that had shaped the castle's haunted past. Meanwhile, outside the castle grounds, villagers gathered cautiously. Word had spread of the ritual, and many hoped the nightmare that had plagued their lives might finally be over. Yet some remained wary, their faces marked by years of fear and suspicion. Lucas's sacrifice had changed everything, but the path to true peace would be long and uncertain. As twilight approached, Evelyn returned to the grand hall, carrying the weight of knowledge and the spark of hope. She knew she was not alone in this quest. Father Matthias, the villagers, and even the spirits themselves were part of the journey toward redemption. Together they would confront the darkness that had shadowed the castle for centuries, and perhaps finally bring the light of healing to a land long shrouded in sorrow. The castle's vast library was a labyrinth of knowledge and secrets. Evelyn stepped cautiously between the towering shelves, the musty scent of old parchment and leather-bound tomes filling the air. Every book seemed to hold a fragment of the past, a piece of the puzzle that could unravel the dark history woven into the stone walls. She ran her fingers along the spines, stopping occasionally to pull a volume from the shelf. Most were written in archaic languages or faded scripts, but Evelyn's resolve was unwavering. She was determined to decipher whatever truths lay buried beneath the dust. Hours slipped by unnoticed as she immersed herself in the ancient texts. The flickering candlelight cast long shadows, dancing across the walls like restless spirits. The silence was thick, broken only by the occasional rustle of pages or the distant howl of the wind outside. Among the manuscripts, one in particular caught her attention, a leather-bound diary with a cracked spine. Its pages were fragile, yellowed by time, yet the handwriting was unmistakably elegant and deliberate. As she carefully opened it, a story began to unfold, written by a woman named Isabel, who had once lived within these very walls. Isabel's words revealed a hidden narrative of forbidden love and political intrigue. She wrote of secret meetings in hidden chambers, coded messages passed under the veil of darkness, and a growing tension that had rippled through the castle's noble families. But more chilling were her descriptions of strange occurrences, footsteps echoing in empty corridors, fleeting glimpses of shadowy figures, and eerie whispers that seemed to seep from the very stones. Isabel feared that the castle was cursed, haunted by the restless souls of those wronged by betrayal and bloodshed. Evelyn felt a shiver run down her spine as she read the diary's final entry. Isabel spoke of a prophecy, a warning that the curse would only be lifted when the truth was fully revealed and justice served. The very fate of the castle depended on unearthing the secrets buried beneath centuries of silence. Determined to follow this lead, Evelyn mapped out the hidden chambers mentioned in the diary. She knew that these secret places might hold artifacts or evidence crucial to breaking the lingering curse once and for all. As the night deepened, Evelyn's mind swirled with questions. Could the spirits finally find peace if the truth came to light? Would the villagers, long scarred by fear and superstition, embrace the possibility of healing? Outside the castle walls, the wind howled louder, as if echoing her doubts. But within her heart, a spark of hope burned brighter than ever. The journey was far from over, but with every whisper uncovered in the library's shadowy recesses, Evelyn moved one step closer to freeing the castle from its dark past. The moon hung low and heavy over the ancient castle, casting a silvery glow that barely penetrated the dense fog surrounding the grounds. Evelyn felt the chill creeping through her bones as she gathered the villagers inside the dimly lit great hall. Tonight, they would confront the restless spirits haunting the castle once and for all. Candles flickered, their warm glow casting long, wavering shadows across the worn stone floor. The air was thick with anticipation and fear. The villagers, clutching talismans and clutching hands tightly, exchanged nervous glances. Evelyn, standing at the center, prepared to lead the seance, a ritual to communicate with the beyond, to seek the truth from the other side. She placed a round oak table in the center and invited the villagers to sit around it. The old priest, Father Benedict, brought a relic, an ancient crucifix said to possess protective powers. He whispered prayers softly, invoking divine protection over the gathering. Evelyn took a deep breath and called upon the spirits to reveal themselves, to speak of their suffering, and to guide them towards peace. The room fell silent save for the occasional creak of the ancient wooden beams overhead. Suddenly, a cold gust swept through the hall, extinguishing several candles. The table trembled as if moved by invisible hands. A faint whisper floated through the air, a voice fragmented and sorrowful. "We are trapped, cursed, bound by blood and betrayal." The villagers gasped. Some gripped the table's edge tightly. Others closed their eyes, overwhelmed by the eerie presence. Evelyn focused, reaching out with her mind to the shadowed realm. The voice grew clearer, telling tales of the noble family's brutal conflicts, the hidden murders that stained the castle's halls, and the innocent souls caught in the crossfire. A spirit, a woman dressed in tattered noble garments, materialized faintly, a shimmering apparition named Isabel. She pleaded for justice and for the truth to be told so their souls might finally be free. The seance continued, revealing layers of secrets that Evelyn had never imagined. Each revelation pierced the silence like a dagger, exposing long-buried sins and the tangled web of deceit that had cursed the castle for centuries. As dawn approached, the spirits faded, leaving behind a heavy but hopeful silence. The villagers looked to Evelyn with newfound resolve. They would help bring the truth to light, to break the curse and to heal the wounds that had festered for generations. Evelyn's heart swelled with a mix of exhaustion and determination. The path ahead was still treacherous, but tonight had brought a breakthrough, a promise that the shadows might finally lift. As dawn's pale light began to seep through the high, narrow windows of the castle, Evelyn found herself drawn toward the dusty, forgotten library. The room was a cavernous vault of knowledge, filled with towering shelves that reached toward the shadowed ceiling. Centuries of history and secrets were tucked within these leather-bound tomes, waiting to be uncovered. After the intense seance the night before, Evelyn felt an urgent need to delve deeper into the castle's past. She hoped to find concrete proof of the dark events the spirits had revealed, something that could break the curse that plagued the castle and its people. She stepped carefully over the creaking floorboards, the air thick with the scent of old parchment and mold. As she lit a flickering candle, the fragile flame cast eerie shadows on the faded tapestries adorning the walls. Evelyn's fingers traced the spines of countless books until one caught her attention. A thick volume, bound in cracked black leather and etched with symbols she did not recognize. Pulling it free, she blew off the dust, revealing an inscription on the first page. Chronicles of the Blackened Bloodline, a tale of betrayal, war, and redemption. Her heart raced. This was the key she had been searching for. Opening the book, she began to read stories of the castle's founding family, their rise to power during the turbulent 17th century, their ruthless rivalries with neighboring houses, and the tragic events that led to their downfall. There were accounts of secret alliances, forbidden romances, and bloody betrayals that stained the bloodline with a curse said to condemn their souls to eternal unrest. As Evelyn turned the pages, she found a hidden letter tucked between the brittle sheets. It was penned by a woman named Marguerite, the last surviving member of the family before the curse took full hold. The letter was a desperate plea for forgiveness and a detailed account of a secret ritual meant to cleanse the bloodline. But the ritual required a rare artifact lost somewhere in the depths of the castle's forgotten catacombs. Determined to find this relic, Evelyn knew the next step was clear. She would have to brave the darkness below and confront the horrors lurking in the shadows, because only by uncovering the past could she hope to save the future. With the ancient book clutched tightly in her hands, Evelyn steeled herself to descend into the forgotten catacombs beneath the castle. The air in the narrow stairwell was damp and cold, carrying a faint scent of decay that made her skin crawl. Each step echoed eerily, as if the shadows themselves whispered warnings she dared not heed. The flickering candlelight barely pierced the oppressive darkness, revealing walls etched with strange symbols, arcane markings from a time long past. Evelyn's heartbeat quickened as she remembered Marguerite's letter. The ritual required not only the artifact, but also a place of immense power hidden deep within these tunnels. The passage narrowed until she reached a heavy iron door, rusted shut but not locked. With a push and a grunt, Evelyn forced it open, revealing a cavernous chamber below. The room was illuminated by a faint blue glow emanating from crystalline formations embedded in the walls. It was unlike anything Evelyn had ever seen, a natural cathedral of light and shadow. At the center stood an altar carved from black stone, stained with what looked like ancient blood. Surrounding it were faded tapestries depicting scenes of sacrifice and sorrow. Evelyn approached cautiously, feeling an inexplicable pull drawing her closer. Suddenly the ground trembled beneath her feet. From the darkness beyond the chamber, guttural whispers rose into a chilling chant. Shadows writhed and coalesced into vague shapes, ghostly figures trapped between worlds, guardians of the cursed relic. Evelyn's breath caught, but she refused to retreat. She remembered her mission, to end the curse that had haunted the castle for centuries. Steeling her resolve, she stepped forward and laid the book upon the altar. The symbols on the altar pulsed with a deep red light, resonating with the ancient energy trapped in the relic. The spirit's chanting intensified, filling the chamber with a terrifying symphony of sorrow and rage. Evelyn closed her eyes and recited the incantation Marguerite had written, her voice steady despite the fear gnawing at her heart. As the final words left her lips, a blinding light erupted from the altar, banishing the shadows and silencing the spirits. The oppressive weight lifted from the air, replaced by a profound stillness. Evelyn opened her eyes to find the chamber transformed, the blue crystals now shining with a gentle warmth, the tapestries vibrant once more. She had done it. The curse was broken. But as she turned to leave, a cold breeze brushed her neck, a whisper of warning that the story was far from over. Somewhere deeper in the castle, another secret waited, darker and more dangerous than anything she had faced so far. The warning wind lingered in Evelyn's mind as she retraced her steps from the chamber. The curse that had plagued the castle for centuries was lifted, yet an uneasy feeling gnawed at her soul. She knew that the true darkness still lay hidden, buried beneath layers of secrets and lies. Back on the surface, the castle seemed almost serene in the pale light of dawn. But Evelyn's eyes caught a faint glimmer behind a loose stone in the grand hallway, a symbol she recognized from the book, one that had not yet revealed its meaning. Guided by instinct, she pressed the stone. To her astonishment, the wall trembled and shifted, revealing a narrow passage concealed within. The air was thick with dust and the scent of forgotten time. Heart pounding, Evelyn stepped inside. The passage led downwards, deeper than the catacombs she had just escaped. Here, the air was colder, the darkness more profound. The walls bore fresher markings, an intricate tapestry of symbols, runes, and blood-red stains. At the passage's end, Evelyn found a heavy wooden door bound with iron bands. She hesitated, the weight of centuries pressing down on her. Taking a deep breath, she pushed open the door, revealing a chamber unlike any other. Inside was a vast room lined with towering bookshelves, filled with ancient tomes and scrolls. In the center, an imposing figure sat on a throne, a statue carved from obsidian, its eyes glowing faintly with a malevolent light. The figure's presence seemed to chill the air itself. Evelyn approached cautiously, the book in her hand suddenly growing warm. She realized this was no ordinary library. It was the heart of the castle's dark power, a sanctuary for forbidden knowledge and evil. As she scanned the shelves, a sudden movement caught her eye. A hidden compartment slid open, revealing a dusty journal bound in cracked leather. The handwriting inside was elegant but hurried, detailing rituals, betrayals, and a blood oath that had doomed the castle's founders. The journal's last entry sent a shiver down Evelyn's spine, a prophecy of a chosen one who would either destroy the darkness or become its eternal servant. Her reflection in the obsidian statue's glowing eyes stared back at her, and Evelyn knew her journey was far from over. The hidden chamber held answers, but also dangers that could consume her soul. Evelyn's breath caught as she stepped further into the hidden chamber. The oppressive silence was broken only by the faint crackling of the obsidian statue's glowing eyes. She knew that the secrets she had uncovered were far more dangerous than she had imagined. The journal's prophecy weighed heavily on her mind. Could she truly be the one destined to confront the darkness? Her fingers trembled as she traced the faded ink of the last entry. The ritual described was ancient, calling upon forces beyond mortal comprehension, forces that, if unleashed, could either save or doom the castle forever. Suddenly the room grew colder. Shadows lengthened and twisted along the walls as if alive. The air pulsed with an unseen energy, and a whisper barely audible curled around Evelyn's ears. Choose wisely. Her heart pounded in her chest, a mix of fear and determination surging through her veins. She realized that she was no longer alone. The statue's eyes flared brighter, casting eerie light that danced across the towering shelves. From the darkness emerged a figure, pale, ethereal, and draped in tattered robes. Its face was obscured, but Evelyn felt its gaze pierce her very soul. The apparition spoke, its voice like the rustling of dry leaves. "You have awoken me, Seeker. The time of reckoning approaches." Evelyn steadied herself. "What do you want from me?" "To break the curse, you must complete the ritual. But beware, the path is fraught with peril. The darkness feeds on fear and doubt." The ghostly figure extended a hand, revealing an ancient amulet etched with the same symbol she had seen throughout the castle. "This will guide you, but only if your heart remains true." Evelyn took the amulet, feeling its cold weight settle against her palm. The chamber seemed to pulse in response, the runes glowing faintly along the walls. Suddenly, a deafening roar shook the chamber. The statue shattered into fragments of obsidian, and the ground trembled beneath her feet. The darkness was awakening, stronger, more furious than ever. Evelyn knew that the final battle was imminent. Armed with the amulet and her resolve, she prepared to face the shadows that had haunted the castle for centuries. Outside, the sky darkened, thunder rolling across the ancient battlements. The curse was no longer dormant. It was alive, and it sought vengeance. The castle trembled under the storm's wrath as Evelyn stood before the ancient altar in the heart of the chamber. The amulet pulsed fiercely in her hand, its glow battling the encroaching darkness that clawed at the walls. Outside, lightning split the sky, illuminating the ruined battlements and casting long shadows that danced like wraiths. She took a deep breath, recalling the words from the journal. The ancient ritual to seal the curse and banish the darkness forever. The air was thick with magic and malice, and Evelyn could feel the weight of centuries pressing down on her shoulders. Around her, the spirits of the forgotten, knights, peasants, and nobles alike, hovered silently, their faces etched with sorrow and hope. They had waited for this moment, their restless souls yearning for release. With steady hands, Evelyn arranged the ceremonial relics exactly as the journal instructed. Her voice rose in a chant, echoing through the chamber like a haunting melody. The amulet's light intensified, weaving threads of shimmering energy that snaked upward to the vaulted ceiling. Suddenly, the darkness coalesced into a monstrous shape, a twisted apparition of rage and despair. Its eyes burned like molten fire, and its voice was a deafening roar that shook the very stones. "You cannot defeat me, mortal," it bellowed. "This castle is mine, as is the darkness within." But Evelyn stood firm, drawing strength from the spirits around her and the courage that had carried her this far. She raised the amulet high, releasing a wave of pure light that pierced the shadowy form. The creature screamed, a sound of agony and fury, as the light consumed it inch by inch. The chamber shook violently, dust and debris swirling in the turbulent energy, then silence. When the dust settled, the oppressive gloom had lifted. The castle seemed to breathe anew, its ancient stones glowing faintly with renewed life. The spirits around Evelyn smiled, their burdens finally lifted as they faded into the light. Evelyn sank to her knees, exhausted but victorious. She had broken the curse that had haunted the castle for centuries. The legacy of pain and darkness was finally at an end. Outside, the storm passed, revealing a dawn painted in soft hues of gold and pink. The sun rose over the horizon, promising a future free from shadows. Evelyn knew her journey was over, but the memories and lessons would stay with her forever. The castle, once a place of terror, was now a beacon of hope, proof that even the darkest curses could be broken by courage and light. As she walked away from the ancient stone walls, the wind whispered one last farewell, carrying with it the promise of peace. As dawn finally breaks over Blackthorn Castle, the veil of darkness lifts. The restless spirits find their peace, their stories told, and their curses lifted. But the castle remains, a silent guardian of its haunted history, forever waiting for the next soul daring enough to listen to its whispers. In the end, some secrets are never truly buried, and some shadows never fade. The legend of Blackthorn lives on, reminding us that the past is never as distant as it seems.